Awesome. All right, so today we will be discussing how much should I pay myself? I did not go too far into how to physically pay yourself, but if that is a question, we can totally hold some space for that at the end and know the answer just right out the gate is not from your personal checking account. So we can talk about that if we want to create some space for that at the end. But let us dive on in. So would love, most of us know each other here. Alice, do we know each other? Again, terrible with names. And I can't see your face, so I'm not sure. And Alice might be busy, which is okay. Oh, welcome.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I just got out of bed and saw your email. And no, we don't know each other, but I get your emails and I have a small business and we don't pay ourselves yet. So I figured I should
Yay!
jump
You're in
on.
the right spot then.
Great.
Continue with your multitasking, Alice.
Okay, I'm definitely turning my video back off.
You're fine.
You look great.
I know. I'm like, you look amazing. Welcome, Anna. Thanks for making it today. So if you feel so compelled, feel free to throw in the chat box who you are, where you're coming from. And I would also love to add to that prompt, do you currently pay yourself? Which I know is maybe exposing some feelings, but this is as safe as I can make it space, hopefully. I don't get to decide whether or not it's a safe space, you do, but hopefully you feel safe here. And would just love to get, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but would love to kind of get a paying myself, Joanne says, but would love to just kind of get a read for are folks currently paying themselves? Is this an aspiration that you're working towards? What's your relationship with paying yourself? Is this a brand new thing? Have you been doing it for decades? Yeah, would just kind of love to hear a little bit about that. So today we're going to go through a 6-step process to figuring out how much to pay yourself. And then we'll have a little space for questions after that. And then we'll dive into what's next. Cool. Thank you for introducing yourself, toilet designer. Love it. And I know all of you except for you, Alice, personally, but sounds like you're on my email list. So you have a relative idea of who I am. I'm an anti-capitalist business coach here in Burlington, Vermont. And in addition to running my own business and paying myself, I also am the business sense manager at Opportunities Credit Union, which is a super rad local credit union here in Burlington and Winooski. And we got this really awesome grant to do free education on financial literacy for small business owners. And so that is what I am here doing. We're going to run this series again in the fall. So if you're just joining us for the end, this was the 4th session of 4. Or if you were watching the replays and you wish you had been live, we will be doing this again in the fall, which will be fun. And I've made some tweaks and we've added some cool things. So that's great. And we'll keep rolling here. Awesome. Anna, welcome. You plan to pay yourself. I love that idea. I like that plan. And other Anna, you said new to business, so I don't even know. Love it. Yeah, totally. All right. I'm going to make your faces a little bit smaller so that I can see. So we were just kind of throwing it in the chat there right now, whether or not you are currently paying yourself. And I'm curious for the folks that do pay themselves, do you pay yourself on a regular interval, or is it like when you feel comfortable paying yourself, you pay yourself? Okay, so Kelsey, it's a percentage of the money that comes in. Is that on a monthly basis, quarterly, daily? Is there an interval of time?
Monthly-ish. It's how frequently I get paid, but
okay.
roughly. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. And I think pretty much, Alice, I was just a small tempe making business. Cool. Alice, I was just curious. I know everybody else's businesses, but I was wondering if you were a product service. And so the tempe you make, do you sell it? Is it where do you sell it?
So we are in a couple restaurants in our town,
Okay.
Bellingham, Washington, and farmers markets, but we just last week got into our local food hub, which means we'll have distribution through Seattle and all of the island counties out here. So a big change for us, which is why this felt ultra fitting to.
Congrats. That's exciting.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Awesome. That's helpful for me to know, just kind of like what your money situation looks like in terms of like your offer, your product. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, getting paid. This is it's funny. I find getting paid to be incredibly rewarding, very, very exciting, borderline like even sexy. I'm like, it's really, really cool to pay myself. And at the same time, it's like totally terrifying. And I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack sometimes when I do it. I found this to be true way more when I was operating. Sorry, I'm going to let some folks in here. I found it a little bit more intimidating to pay myself. And I found I was more capable of walking myself back from and not paying myself when it wasn't like a structured, scheduled thing, right? So if it was something that like possibly similar to Kelsey's model of like, I pay myself when money comes in. If it was like left up to me to decide how much to pay myself each month, I would constantly underpay myself because I would get nervous and be like, yeah, well, things went well this month, but like, what if they don't go well next month? And so like, I should be like conservative and like pay myself less, until I finally had a friend who was like, you are drastically underpaying yourself. You need to double your salary immediately. I was like, oh shit. Okay. That's exciting. So, all that to be said, most of us have probably like worked a job where someone paid us a steady paycheck at some point in time. Maybe it was like in your teens. And you didn't really have to think about it, right? Like it was just a set paycheck that came in every week or every other week or once a month. And that's ideally what I'd like to get to for folks in business as well, is getting to a place where you're just like consistently relying on this paycheck versus having to make these big decisions every month or every couple of weeks. So, sometimes we can get into this place of like, what should I be paying myself annually? And instead of thinking so much of, thinking of this like annual income and like how much I make every year, I prefer to kind of work on figuring out how to divvy up our money between our business and our personal bank accounts now on a monthly or, like I said, biweekly basis. So we have a couple different types of businesses here. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Oh, hello. Welcome. Welcome, new friends. Hi, Maris. Okay. So there is really no one size fits all formula here for paying ourselves. It's going to depend on a whole bunch of different factors, especially your expenses. That was part of why I was curious, Alice, of like, what type of business do you have? Because depending on your business, whether it's product or let's say you have a brick and mortar, you're also going to hear my baby cry for a second. We have different expenses, right? That we need to take into account. We all have to save for taxes. I hate to tell you that until we like completely overthrow the government. Haha, just kidding. We have to continue paying taxes. So we will all be thinking about that. Some of us are going to have debt, but some of us don't. I know lots of service providers who operate completely online and there really is no debt to the business right now versus someone who just bought a big standing mixer to make pie dough is obviously going to be paying that debt off to pay off that machine. And then last but not least, we're going to be thinking a little bit about building your business savings. I'm curious, let me know in the chat, who has a business savings account? And maybe a better first question is, who has a business checking account? Do you have a bank account separate for your business? And if so, do you have a savings account? Awesome, Anna. Woohoo. Cool. Joanne, yep, you have both. Maris, yes. Nothing's in the savings, but you do have money in the checking. Cool. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yep, Joanne, similar. You just don't put anything in the savings. Yeah, same. Okay, cool, Anna. It's all in your personal right now. Awesome. We can talk a little bit about that. No shame, Anna. No shame here. This is a shame-free place. Awesome. I operated for a long time, like full transparency. There was a hot minute that I operated my entire business just out of my personal account. There's nothing there's no shame around that. Eventually we want to get you to a place where you're what lawyers call no longer co-mingling assets. And that's a good goal for us to set too. Okay. So we are going to walk through these 6 steps to calculate your monthly net income. In addition to this, I'm going to give you something that's going to make this so fun and easy. Let me grab this. Hopefully you can, this should be view only. Will you guys click on that link and let me know if you can open it? And again, sorry, my baby's just waking up from nap. But soon we'll have a bottle. Okay, cool. I see you guys in here. Awesome. So what you're going to do if you have not done this before is you're going to go to File and you're going to go to Make a Copy. And if you want, and you already had our previous folder, you could put it here in that Money Foundations, Tools, Calculators, and Spreadsheets folder. We could put it there. We'll make a copy. We'll move it over there. So you guys can put it wherever you want. Once you make a copy, you should be able to edit this. You should be able to like put numbers in here now. Okay. So
Emily,
yeah, go for it.
I'm
babe.
sorry. I just feel like I've missed something. What was that folder that you were just saying with the tools?
Oh, yeah.
Do we all have that?
You should have it, but you might not if
Retro.
Retro. Hold
I don't-
on.
I didn't have it because I just sort of like saved files one by one from previous
That's
ones,
fine.
but now I'll organize them because that makes sense.
Yeah, you can do that. So I will also just give you you guys the folder again, the link real quick.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets lost and shared with me, and
I
it's
know. Yeah.
a shortcut to your drive.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
So when you're in here,
Great.
you'll
Thank
see
you.
there's a bunch of other sheets in here. We also have a fun little like exercise on money and time and stuff like that. So as we walk through this, it would probably behoove you to just fill this calculator out while we walk through these steps. That being said, if you want to just kind of like sit back and absorb, or if you're multitasking, totally cool. But I did find this calculator and I thought it worked really, really well. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So let's dive back in. So part of your homework for today's session, and totally cool if like A, you didn't do the homework, or B, you go back to present, or B, you are new and this is the first time you've been with us. That's totally fine too. But your homework was to calculate your monthly net income. So what you're going to do is figure out what your gross revenue was, and you're going to minus all your expenses, and that will be your net income. Does anyone have an idea of what this is? Does anyone know what this number is? You can tell me in the chat. Or the crickets can tell me that the answer is no.
Emily, is it annoying if we just like unmute and ask you questions?
No, go for it.
Okay,
This
cool.
is a space for you guys, not me. Go for it.
I just wanted to check for the cash flow projection template
Yep.
that we've been working with.
Yep.
Is this either an equation that's already here on this template? I don't think so, right? Because it just has like, is the net cash change the difference between expenses and revenue? Or part of me is wondering if I should create can create an equation so that it's here and just automatically does it every month for me.
It should. Oh, sorry, my screen's being funky. Here we go. Okay, so this is our, this is what Anna's referencing. But Maris, you said each month is wildly different at the moment. Okay, we can talk about that too. Because Maris, I have really like fluctuating months throughout the year as well. And so part of, I think what I would love to see is filling out this cash flow projection template, because then we can kind of take an average of like, if I have all 12 months, then I can divide that by 12, right? And see on average how much money is coming in. That might be helpful because then we can base our pay off of that average. That being said, if you put all of the yellow, Anna, like anything under yellow is money coming in, And then anything in gray is money going out, right?
Mhm.
So we have cost of goods, and then we also have these operating expenses. Additional, and then so down here, it should say net,
So the net cash change is that,
yeah,
right? Okay, cool.
yeah. So that should
Great.
be your net. And so what you can do is then, sometimes I wish I had 5 screens. So then what you can do is we can put, you could probably, if you want, I think, we'll see if the function lets you, but maybe you can just put straight into the net income bucket. If not, put your gross income in up here and then put your expenses here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing it's probably going to let you skip this and just come straight here. Does it let you do that?
See.
Oh,
is
it's
the
not
total.
gonna, it's not gonna let you edit that. Never mind. Okay, so you're gonna have to go, you're gonna have to put your gross income from the cash flow bucket.
Okay. And I think I'll do a thing too where I'm just going to average the first 6 months, I think, as a
I
way
love
to
that.
get
Yep.
a monthly thing.
I
Okay.
love that. Maris, do you have enough data to make an average? Okay, if you're not available right now. I just want you to, if it's helpful. Oh, Maris is, I like pulled the pictures back up of you guys. And I'm like, Maris is vacant from her chair. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Let me know. Just unmute yourself or pause me anywhere along the way.
I think I'm gonna estimate just based on, like, I've had such a weird last 6 months, so I like the idea of what Anna says, because I'm hoping the next 6 months will be better, but who knows? And yeah, just I don't know. That's it. Why?
Okay. Okay, so the other place that you can find this is we did that profit and loss sheet. So if you have a monthly, or if you don't have this data, what you could do is just run a monthly net income from running a profit and loss statement. We talked about this in the very first session. I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but if you were there for that, you could also pull this from there. But if you are similar to Maris or myself and you have really fluctuating months, this might not be the most accurate representation of the business. Like I said, I like to use the previous 6 months to be sure I'm accounting for quarterly and unexpected expenses. So that's also true. Like, not only is your income maybe variable over time, but your expenses might be variable over time. I think one of you mentioned like you pay for a lot of your tools annually. And so it's like in April, you might have like triple the expenses because that was when the annual renewal was for those tools, right? So we'd want to be able to capture that. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
What's like cost of goods sold for someone like me who's everything's online? Oh,
None.
Got it.
Yeah. Yep. You can just skip that. Yep.
okay.
Your expenses would be, if you go further down the cash flow worksheet, you'll see there's other line items for expenses. Cost of goods is just if you have like physical products. So like if you had the cost of like earring hooks and beads and right, all of those kinds of things. Okay, so then step 2, we're going to calculate your tax savings because we need to pay taxes. So in the chat, let me know, are you currently saving for taxes and or are you currently paying quarterly taxes? And there is literally no shame around this. You can say, no, Emily, I'm not saving any money for taxes. That is okay. There are definitely years that I have not saved money for taxes. And also had a heart attack about it. So safe space here if that's happening. Okay, cool. Kelsey, you said saving for taxes, but not paying quarterly. Anna, you just pay the quarterly estimates. Cool. Awesome. Person that is initials JN. What is your name, my dear? So I can speak to you. Oh, Jean. Okay, I see it now. Awesome. And just so you know, you're messaging me directly, Jean. No worries at all. You said yes, saving, but not filing quarterly. And then Anna, you asked, is income tax expense in the cash flow? I would hope it is. Do you not see it in the expenses?
Oh, no, I do. I just want to make sure that that's the right one
Yep.
versus like interest expense or I don't know. Okay,
No,
cool.
no. Yep, income tax.
Great.
Hi, Jean. Okay, so let's talk about, sometimes folks make the mistake of like figuring out how much to pay themselves before they've paid taxes or paid off loans. And we actually want to do the opposite. So we want to figure out what the taxes are. We want to like, essentially, we're continuing to remove expenses, right? Before we figure out exactly how much money is left over and what we want to pay ourselves from that. So show of hands, who works with like an accountant for their taxes? Just curious. Yes, you can do a virtual or actual hand. Okay. Yep. Cool. Awesome. So if you are working with an accountant, they will help you figure out exactly what your quarterly payments are. If you need to pay quarterly, I strongly advise at least like building a relationship with someone, even if you don't necessarily decide to use them to file for your taxes. It's just really helpful to have someone that you can ask these questions to. But a safe starting point is going to be 30% of your net income. So not your gross income, but your net income. Okay. So that's income after expenses. So if your net income, and I clearly used very easy numbers here because math is hard, but if your net income is 100K, you would want to put aside 30K every year for taxes. And I don't know about you, but the first time I saw that, I was like, that is so much money. What the hell? So if that is like a feeling that you're having, that's totally normal. It is a lot of money. And at the same time, you know, we need roads to drive on and water to drink and all those kinds of things. So I try to focus more on like, if that feels insane and I'm like, oh my God, where's that money going to come from? I try to focus a little bit more on like, okay, how do I actually, like, what am I in control of? How do I make money? How can I bring more money into the business? If that's kind of like the reaction that I'm having, I try to focus a little bit more on what I'm in control of versus that. So we have our net income times 30% is going to give us our monthly tax savings. So that's like what we need to be saving, right? And then that net income minus our monthly tax savings is going to be owner access. So that's what we're calling it right now. So like that's the money that you as an owner have access to. Okay. Any questions there? That part should hopefully be pretty clear. Maris, are you laughing at me?
No, I was laughing at the question I just put in the chat.
Oh, I've been trying to build taxes into my prices. Is that anti-capitalist? I love it. I think that's a great idea. No, and this is a really good point. If you're like, you know, I also bake in like payment processing fees into my prices, right? Because a lot of folks pay me with a credit card and I have to pay to run that credit card, right? Like you might not realize as a client that I am paying, you know, 3.5%, which if you are paying me thousands of dollars, that's a lot of money that I have to pay in a credit card processing fee. So I try to bake that into my pricing instead of A, being pissed and resentful that you paid with a credit card and being bitter towards you because that's not helpful. Or B, just like then not having charged enough money and I'm like, shit, now I'm not making enough money. So part of this is like figuring out how much this all actually costs to run business. And then right, this is how we should build our pricing, not just based on like purely gut instinct or what we can stomach saying out loud, but more like what it actually costs to do business, and taxes is part of that. I had this come up with some folks hired me for consulting and I gave them my price and they were like, that's so high. And I was like, yeah, and 30% of what you're paying me is going to paying taxes. So like, I'm not taking all of that money. But sometimes folks forget, especially in the consulting world, because they're used to like they're thinking about hourly rates, they're thinking about salaries, they're thinking about payroll, but like that 30% is baked in, right, to that price. Whereas when you're hiring me as a consultant, I still have to go out and pay those taxes. So just keeping that in mind. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
What's
go
your
for it.
thought on offering like a cash rate?
Yeah,
So it's
that's
like
totally.
3%.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a huge percent, but somebody might be like, oh, I can do that. I wouldn't mind the discount, but then I feel like other people might feel dinged because they don't have that available.
Well, what I have done for folks is I've told them, like, if you'll pay me with a check,
Yeah.
I can like do some wiggle room. I also sometimes though have been like, the price is 2,500 regardless. If you mail me a check, it's actually just helpful to me. And if you want to be helpful to me, you can mail me a check. Like, I'm not going to change the price for you necessarily, but like, if you would like to be helpful and send me either a direct deposit or a check, then I get to keep that whole money and I get to use that money towards, growing my business and doing other rad things. And sometimes people are willing to do that. Totally. Okay, so then step 3, we're going to factor in any business debt. So let me know in the chat, does anyone have debt currently for the business? Have you borrowed money or credit card debt? This is like specifically business related, so not like personal debt, like mortgage, student loans, credit cards for you, but debt for the business. Yeah, so we have some yeses, some nos. Is anyone considering going into debt for the business and trying to figure out if that's a good idea? Alice, I know you probably you're not typing as much. If you want to unmute yourself, you would be like someone who I would think might be considering going into debt if you haven't already. Just because you have a physical product.
Yeah, no, I run this business with my husband and we are not in debt yet, but we're needing to upgrade our kitchen and buy equipment and would like to avoid it, but we'll probably need some sort of loan. Yeah.
Do you guys have a credit union you like near you?
Yes.
Cool.
Part of a
Awesome.
local credit union. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm
Great.
going to try to switch over to my laptop Zoom now that I'm in one place. So
go for it.
Just so you know.
I'll let you back in.
Okay.
Cool. So for some folks, we'll have that is going to be part of your calculation, and for other folks, it's not. What we'll figure out is at the end of this calculation, if there is money left over, sometimes it makes more sense to be paying off your debt more, and sometimes it makes more sense to take that money and invest it in the business and grow sales faster. Those are questions that, like a loan officer or someone at a bank that you trust, like Opportunities Credit Union, you can go and speak to someone for free there, and they will tell you whether or not it's more advantageous for you to pay off your debt faster or to invest the money in the business first, which I thought was really cool. That was in my head. I've always been taught, like, pay off your debt no matter what. Like, don't hold on to debt, don't accumulate debt, right? Which I think on average is probably a good idea. But there are moments in the business where like debt isn't actually negatively impacting you, and you would be better suited to take the money you're making and pour that back into the business, either through marketing or hiring someone or whatever it is, right? And to hold on to the debt for a little bit longer. So if you ever get into a place where you are wondering, like, is it better for me to hold debt or is it better for me to pay the debt off? Definitely reach out to like a local credit union. They can be really helpful in walking you through the pros and cons of each. Okay, so if you have debt, add that to your calculator. So this will be, so we've got our owner access was the money that was left over after expenses and after taxes. So that was our owner access. We're now going to subtract any monthly debt payments. If you want to just put your minimum monthly debt payments for right now, that's totally fine. We can kind of play with it as we move along. All right. Got Alice back in here. Welcome back, Alex. All right, so then step 4 is to create a business savings plan. So before you pay yourself from your business income, we want to consider how much savings you want to have in your business. I have always been told that you should have like 6 months of business expenses, including your salary on hand. I think that is an insane amount of money. It is an amount of money that I have yet to acquire. So if that feels like, oh my God, I'm going to be spending the rest of my life saving up that 6 months of expenses, you're not alone. The vast majority of small business owners, this is just anecdotally, but in my opinion, the vast majority of us are like often living paycheck to paycheck. And so if like setting aside tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars seems like a really lofty goal, you are not alone in that. What I'd love for you to do is just start with like, what would it look like for me to save up a month's worth of expenses? And so expenses are anything that's on your expense sheet, in addition to how much you would be paying yourself. So if I pay myself $5,000 a month and my expenses are $2,000 a month, I would want to have a savings account with $7,000 in it. Does that make sense? Yes, cool, awesome. Eventually, I think a realistic and attainable goal would be 3 months of business expenses to have set in a savings account. And I can attest that I have personally dipped into that savings account before. And that was really, really helpful to have that money and not have to like totally freak out. The other thing that the savings account does for you that I think is really wonderful as small business owners who have big, juicy, creative brains and are constantly thinking up more rad, awesome things to do in the world is it gives you a little bit of a safety net to follow those creative endeavors. Right. So like, let's say you're 3 years into business and you're like, you know what I'm doing right now, like just isn't lighting me up like it used to. I'd really like to try something else. It's not the same as being an employee where you just go and apply for a new job, right? And bam, there's that new paycheck. Like you might have to like start something all from scratch again. And if we have that savings account set up ahead of time, we've got a little bit of buffer, right? It gives us a little bit more flexibility. It also gives you another option to like not have to go get a part-time job if things get rough, which many of us end up having to do. So consider it an option, a strong consideration. I would start with a month if you can, and then work yourself up to 3 months. I think after 3 months, I might actually like.
Not sure I understand.
Wow, my watch has been listening to me this whole time. That's fun. After 3 months of expenses, I would first, like, again, this is how risk averse you are and what's going to benefit you. But if I have 3 months of expenses, like plus my salary, if there's more money after that, I'd probably rather just put that into marketing, because then I'd rather like use that money to make the business grow instead of like continuing to create more savings. I think it depends too on like how volatile your work is and, you know, how much you expect things to shift and change over time. Any questions about savings? No worries, Maris. We'll see you soon. Okay, so here's some things that you might consider saving for. Folks that are thinking about hiring, if you have equipment purchases, like Alice mentioned, if you're working on any product development or product launches, if you wanted a little extra cushion in your checking account, rebrands or website redesign, training programs or certifications, if you're like trying to learn something new. And then again, that emergency fund. So what I would love to encourage you to do next is think about and tell us in the chat, how much do you want to save for each item on this list? Like we're going to make a list of things that you might want to save for. And how much do you think you want to save for those? And how many months will it take you to reach that goal? So I'm going to give you like a minute here, but I'd love for you to write down what are a couple things that you would want to save for. It's okay if it's just one thing. Like if you're like, I just want to have an emergency fund. That's it. That's cool. If you're like, I also know I'm going to need a piece of equipment, or I would sure love to pay for someone to build me a website, whatever it is, let's write a couple things down. Let us know in the chat what you would like to save for. And then let's talk a little bit about how much you want to save and how many months it's going to take you to reach that goal. So if you were like, the piece of equipment I need is $10,000 and I think I could realistically save $500 a month, it would take me 20 months, right? That would be our math. What kinds of things do you guys want to save for? Is anyone like, I haven't even thought about saving anything. I'm just trying to figure out how to make money right now. I've been in that place too. You're like, saving sounds like a luxury. Alice, you said equipment and an emergency fund. You don't really see a way to save right now because your current overhead increases with additional production. Yeah, totally. So we're going to talk a little bit about like finessing some of these numbers. Anna, you said you'd love to do professional development. Yeah, cool. I love that. Both Annas would like to do professional development. Sweet.
And Emily, can I just ask I just want to
Yeah.
confirm the logic here. So savings is not including payment for you, right? You said you want to calculate your
not including payment for you. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just like cushion money for operations of your business, kind of.
Yeah. So eventually
that
we'd like
the
to
way?
get to a
Yeah.
place where you have a business checking account and a business savings account. Some people will have like multiple business checking and savings accounts. I'm not adept to like speak to that. You can do it that way, but essentially what we want is to have a safety net. So if you're in business long enough, shit will hit the fan eventually. And we want to know that you're going to be okay when that happens. Right. And so that's what that, and it also, like I said before, it just gives you more options for when you want some flexibility. Yeah.
And do you, I'm just thinking maybe of Joanne too, like I'm finding that because I don't sell goods, like because I would just be doing coaching, that I have very little expenses actually, you know, and that's fine, right? Or like, what would you call that business model?
No, well, so
successful, cheap as fuck.
high profit margin.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I applied for a grant and they were like, can you send us a P&L sheet? And I was like, I have like two things on it. It's like my clients pay me, I pay for my website. Like, is that all you want? And they were like, yep. And I was like, cool, because that's all I have. So yeah, it like some of us are going to have incredibly simple business models, which is honestly like, simple is amazing. Like never underestimate simple. Simple is great. Stick with simple. Do not complicate things if they do not need to be. For folks that have product-based businesses, it's always going to be more complicated. It's going to be more complex. There's just a lot of other moving variables.
Yeah, for us, it's just harder to sell. You know, we're selling ourselves essentially.
Right.
And so people don't end up with a thing. And so that's, you know, the hard part of our business is that, I think.
Yeah. So, but you still have to pay yourself, right? So like your savings account should be your salary for 3 months or 6 months or whatever you want it to be. Plus, if, you know, there are some expenses, I'm sure, to run your business, like maybe you pay for Google Suite, or you eventually have a website, or you have an email marketing system of some sort. I don't know, whatever you want. Or eventually, like maybe, you know, something I didn't put on this list, but like maybe you're like, I would really love to do paid advertising, but I don't make enough money to do paid advertising. And so I want to create, you know, I want to start saving to be able to run a 6-month campaign leading up to something. could be something like that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Jean, you're saving for a car for both business and personal. Awesome. Joanne, you said save for 3 months of what I'd like to have as a monthly income, developing program with materials, and 3 months of Google ad spends. Yep, totally. Cool. Jean, you said you ended up buying one before you finished saving, but you'll probably throw what you saved into your loan soon. Yeah, totally. And that would be, Jean, that's a really good question to talk to a loan officer at a bank that you trust. Because like I said before, sometimes it does make sense if you have extra money to throw it at debt, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it makes sense to throw some of the money at the debt and then throw some of it at marketing. So it can be really useful to have someone that you can talk to about that. Yeah, totally. Okay. Do we have an idea of like how much we want to save and how many months it would take you to save this?
Well,
You can do a little math if you want to, like, for right now, for folks that like either aren't currently paying themselves or like you're not quite sure what that salary is that you would want to save up for. I would say like give an estimate. Yeah, so at your current rate, it might take well over a year. Yeah, exactly. And so these are numbers that can fluctuate, right? Like what I want is like a base, I often work with clients, I'll say like, I would rather you pay yourself $5 a month than no money at all, because it's really just getting in the habit of like doing this thing, right? Because it's a heck of a lot easier to pay yourself $5 a month and then move to $20 a month and then move to $100 a month or whatever than it is to all of a sudden come out of the gate and be like, I'm paying myself $10,000 a month. Like that's really hard emotionally to like get yourself to do and feel confident doing. It's a lot easier if we build over time. So just start somewhere where you're like, yeah, I could stomach that. Like I could figure that out, even if it feels like comically small. Right, baby. Okay, so we're going to factor in our savings. So based on your list, picking a few of your top priorities and dividing your savings goal by the number of months it's going to take you. This will be your monthly savings amount for each item. So your savings goal divided by number of months will be a monthly savings amount. We'll add that to the calculator. And then adding up your monthly savings amounts for each item. So if you have like multiple things that you're saving for, you're going to add those up and then subtract your total monthly savings amount from your owner access number. So this will now be your final owner access number. This is like actually how much money is left over after expenses, taxes, savings. So then the next question is like, is that enough money? Right? Is there enough money left over that would cover your personal needs? And often what I've found this brings up, for me, I'm in a partnership. And so we have a combined income. When I started to figure out like how much, my partner was like, so when are you going to start paying yourself? And I was like, I don't know. Do I have to pay myself? And he was like, yes, you need to pay yourself. We need money. And so that then prompted the discussion of like, okay, how much do I need to pay myself? Like what are, when we think about our mortgage, daycare, food, all these other things, right? So we have our fixed expenses. These are things that are not going to change month to month, like your rent or your mortgage. You have your variable expenses. These are things that do sometimes fluctuate month to month, like your groceries can fluctuate a little bit, although ours don't seem to fluctuate. It just seem to be exorbitantly expensive every month. And then there's extra expenses. And those are things that are not necessarily essential for you to live, but make life enjoyable. So things like Netflix, eating out, travel, vacation. How many folks have done an idea, better question, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being, I have no idea whatsoever, 5 being that shit is like locked in and I know exactly how much money I spend. Where do you land on a personal finance scale? Joanna, 4, cool.
this is over
5.
years and years and years
Yeah.
of looking at this stuff. And if anybody wants to hit me up, I have this I mean, it's not fail safe, but we sort of came up with our own digital form of the envelopes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, awesome. Love that. Thanks for the invitation too. Okay, so lots of threes, like, so not totally out of the loop, but also maybe a little room for improvement of like knowing how much money is being spent and how much you need. I would say the more you can base your business salary on actual need, the more likely you are to A, stick to it, and B, to like go make that money, because it's based on fact versus like some fictional picture you've drawn up for yourself, right? So taking some time to figure out, this is the part where like you might not have these numbers right now, and that would be part of your homework from this session, is to figure out how much money you really need for your household. And then let's evaluate, is the leftover, the owner access amount that's left over after this equation, is that enough to meet your need? Ideally, it's a little bit more than what you need, right? So that we have a little bit of cushion room. It's not a lot of fun if we need $300 and we make $300. There's not much room for error there. So ideally, it's a little bit more. And if, some things to think about while you're figuring out these monthly personal need numbers is like, how many of these personal expenses do you need your business to cover? And what, if anything, can you go without while your business builds momentum? So there are some things, and I think also it's important to know like whether or not you're in partnership or have someone else that can float some of this money at the same time. I don't think enough people talk about how like, often in order for people to start start businesses, it requires someone else to kind of support the financial load. And some of us have that as an option and some of us don't, right? And so figuring that out is also part of this equation too. Okay, so in an ideal world, your personal need number is less than your owner access number from step 5. If that's the case, get down and pay your rad self. Now you know how much to pay yourself. That's the money that's left over. You should start paying yourself that on a regular interval. And you should be able to feel pretty confident that like that was a grounded number and makes sense, and you're going to be able to meet it month after month. You can always like check in and change things if things aren't working. But more likely for most of us, your personal need number is more than your owner access number. And so this is where, Alice, you brought up like right now, as finances are, there is no money for savings, right? Like there isn't an additional. And so that means there's probably not also enough money for owner access would be my guess. But yeah, okay, cool. Like probably the case, so we could talk about that. So finessing the numbers, we have these 4 categories to play with, right? And so you'll notice that tax savings is not one of the 4 categories. You don't get to like play with the taxes part. You have to keep paying that, unfortunately. So keep the taxes in your calculator as is, but these other 4 buckets, we do have some wiggle room, right? And so whether it's cutting some of the expenses in the business or shifting, for instance, like one of the tools I use in my business is the most expensive of its kind. And if there are points in my journey where I'm like, I'm not making as much money as I was before, I might need to reevaluate that tool and pick a cheaper version of it, right? It won't do quite exactly what I want it to do, but it would be close enough. So maybe that's something I'm willing to play with. I might
Is it
be
the Kajabi? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just because I've been asking somebody to I've been looking into.
I would say it's hands down the best course platform. It is also the most expensive course platform. So you just need to be able to make enough money to pay for it, is my argument. And it needs to make sense, like for usage. But it also hosts my website and all my email. So in that sense, like you could argue I could probably get up to the same cost in 3 separate platforms as I am on one. So another consideration is like, am I willing to go into debt? Maybe now is a good time to take on some debt for the business so that I can push it forward in the way I want to. Another option is maybe, there have been moments in time where like I didn't save at all. Right now, I have 2 small children who are requiring almost $4,000 a month in childcare. And that means we are not contributing to our IRA right now, right? Like we're not saving in our personal accounts. And that won't last forever. And that's okay. Like this is a moment in time, but these are some of the decisions. None of these decisions are a ton of fun. I'll just acknowledge this isn't like, yay, I love cutting these things. But this is part of figuring out how to get the business to be solvent and figuring out how to get your needs met and you get paid. And so, maybe the business savings isn't on the table right now, but we want to get to that place. Another thing is personal need expenses, right? So if we found out that the owner pay is not enough to cover our personal needs, is there some wiggle room with the personal needs, right? Are there some things I could adjust so that I don't actually need to pay myself as much as I do? The biggest thing I would say here is that all of these things are temporary. These do not have to be lifelong decisions, right? Like if you choose to cut the business savings, or you choose to go into debt, or you choose to move from your favorite email provider to a cheaper one, like these can all be temporary things until you figure out how to make more money. They don't have to be set in stone. Any questions about that? About kind of fudging, working with the numbers? How are we feeling? I see some somewhat solemn looking faces.
Money just bums me out. So
I
that's all.
know. It's true. It's true. And I think it's part of why, I'll speak at least just for personal experience, is part of why in the past I've like ignored it or like not thought about it or like not crunched these numbers because I'm like, it's just depressing. I like the answer every time is you don't make enough money. And I do like to always just like add in that this is all like a byproduct of living in a capitalist system. So in a better world, your personal needs wouldn't be so expensive and you therefore wouldn't necessarily need to make so much fucking money to make ends meet. And so just keep that in mind that like, yes, there are some things we can do to make you more money. And yes, there are some things that you're in control of. And also you're existing in a system that was not designed for you to like flourish and be fully supported. And so like, this isn't your fault if you're feeling like, okay, I'm working like 80 hours a week and I still don't make enough money. Like, what the hell? Like, how is this supposed to work out? That's not on accident. And I know that doesn't fix it, but yeah.
It helps.
It helps. It helps.
Perspective.
Perspective is important here. And again, all of this is, in my mind, all of this is figure outable. Like if this is what you really want to be doing and this is really important to you, we can figure this out. We can figure out how to make the money work. But ignoring it or choosing to just not pay yourself or choosing to just like overwork, those are not actually solutions. And those lead very quickly to either burnout or, business just kind of imploding on itself. Awesome, Anna. I'm glad this is feeling helpful. So obviously the goal is to get your owner access number to match or be greater than your personal need number. And that may require, like I said, some tough decisions along the way of figuring out what we're cutting. But I think to me, it's way more useful to come up with a sustainable business owner salary than a fantastical one. And that doesn't mean we can't aspire to paying ourselves more. It doesn't mean we can't figure out how to make the business earn more either. Okay. Jesus, I did it, guys. All right. I'm like, this is the 4th workshop. This is the first time I have ended on time. Thank you for your patience with me, but I did it. Questions? Thoughts that are coming up? Could be even just like reflections, feelings.
One question and thought, Emily, is just that we had a small group, I think, on the last session,
Yeah.
and then that we were able to get into the mechanics of how to set things up. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious if either maybe on a coaching call that could happen, or
Yeah.
if there's enough interest where folks would want to talk about that or whatever. Just
Yeah.
curious.
Like setting up the
continue that.
actual accounts and stuff.
Yeah, and like talking about what platforms are best and what are fees and how to,
Yep.
Yep. get paid, and yeah.
Totally. I am loving, in terms of like paying myself, we have, I'm a huge supporter of credit unions and keeping money locally as much as I can. We obviously have a really wonderful credit union here. So I have my business checking and savings there. And then we also have our personal checking and savings there. And so that's really easy. What I have is like, it's essentially an automatic withdrawal is set up every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, it pulls from my business checking and goes into my personal family checking with my partner. That is true if you are an LLC or a sole proprietor. If you are, is anyone an S Corp? Seems unlikely. Okay. The only way that would change is if you're an S Corp, you do actually have to be on payroll and use a payroll provider. Because if you're an S Corp, you're technically like an employee of the corporation, even though it's your corporation. And so you would need to pay yourself through a payroll provider. If anyone's ever curious, like if an S Corp makes sense, you can always reach out and let me know. I'm happy to talk through it more. An accountant is most helpful with that. But for sole proprietors and LLCs, what you're going to do is essentially called like an owner draw. And so it's like on a whatever cadence you decide. I prefer biweekly. Monthly tends to feel stressful for us based on our bills. Because then it like when I was paying myself monthly, we would see like these like high highs in the joint checking account and low lows. And it was just like emotionally more stressful, even though it was the same amount of money. Whereas if I pay myself every other week, it's like it's less fluctuation in the bank accounts. It just feels a little bit more doable. And yeah, and then it's like, whenever you want to, for some of us, you'll give yourself bonuses throughout the year. And it's good to like think that through ahead of time of like, I know a cash injection is coming. How do I want to spend that money? And, again, is it going towards debt? Is it going towards my savings? Is it going towards paying myself? Is it going towards something in the business, like a piece of equipment or an upgrade? But it's good to like think those things through. Sometimes if I like with my consulting projects, sometimes I'll bonus myself. So it's like I continue to pay myself every 2 weeks, but like, let's say like a 15K project comes through the door and I'm like, yep, I'm going to like bonus myself 3K of that and like put that directly into my personal account. And the rest, the other 12K will stay in the business checking. So sometimes I'll do that depending on like how things are looking.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Any other questions? Go for it, Alice.
So we've considered you mentioned this earlier, but we consider charging for credit card processing fees. But it seems almost, every one of our transactions, they tend to be kind of small, but it's like the more you charge though, the more you end up having to pay in credit card fees. So it seems kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And I've just never been able to kind of square that. So we haven't accounted for them and they're not that bad yet, but I don't know. I just feel like charging more, I end up having to pay more. And so what's the point?
Yeah. I mean, you don't necessarily have to pay. It's the same percentage. So it's not like, I'm like trying to think that through in my head. Because like it's 3.5% regardless of what you're charging. So like obviously if the item costs more, it is more, the 3.5% looks bigger, but it's still 3.5% of the product.
Right. But I guess I'm just giving them more money and giving the processor more money if I charge the customer more to cover the processing.
Yeah. I think for me, there's certain things in business that like like taxes, like the first time I paid taxes, I was like, this is fucking awful. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. I think credit card processing fees are similar to me. It's like, it's just like one of the pains of doing business in like a capitalist economy. Like, it's just like, that's part of what's happening. And so my energy it's not a great place for me to spend my energy. You know, like I'd rather you take the time you're like thinking about that and figuring that all out, and like the pain and anguish you're feeling. I'd rather you like take that energy and just go make more money somewhere else. You know, like to me, it's like taking up brain space that you don't really have control over. And so I'd rather you channel that somewhere that's going to help more than just infuriate you more. I don't know. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, I can just cross it off of the mental to-do list for now.
Right? Like sometimes it's like, this part just sucks, and this is like a cost of doing business, and I don't like it, and I don't have to like it. And I also don't have to like let it consume more brain space than it needs to.
Yeah. Well, also my schedule just changed, which is why I was able to attend this one, but I'd love to get myself caught up on the previous meetings.
Yes.
How do I do that?
Definitely. I will send, I'll send out an email today with the links for all of them. Not today, sorry. This week, I'll send out an email with all of the replays and links to those. And then, yeah, you'll have those. And then these are all different places we can hang out. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Nice.
It was
to
so nice
meet
to
you.
officially meet you, Alice.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying your emails. That's as much as I can afford right now.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I know. I wish you were here in Vermont. We have this awesome grant program where you can work with me for free. It's been really cool. I've yet to figure out a way to like there's not really like a national grant program. So, but yeah, totally. We do, I do offer sliding scales and payment plans and all that jazz. So if it ever makes sense at any point, definitely reach out and let me know. But in the meantime, I hope to, we've got plenty more free workshops going throughout the summer and into the fall, and lots of other free ways to hang out.
Awesome.
Cool. Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All of the finance stuff. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Yeah, totally. Any questions, Jean, before we wrap up today?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to unmute.
Oh, little munchie.
Yeah, this is Orion. Hey, buddy. Hi. It's very wiggly. Okay, here. I was just curious. Sometimes I have like trouble parsing out like when I earn my money and then when I get paid, like when do I account for it? Does it matter that much, or is it just like whatever system I want to use?
Oh, like because you invoice, you mean, versus when like the money actually hits your account?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So in our cash flow worksheet, there's a spot for that.
Okay.
And so you'll see cash sales here.
Okay.
Versus customer account collections. And so I do think it's important to like track on average, like when you invoice versus when the money comes in. Partially, I would just want to know trends around like, can I count on money coming in 60 days, in 30 days, in 50, like just so I would have an idea. Mostly I would want to know that just in terms of like planning out for the year. So like when is the money coming in? If it's not every single month, I would want to know when it is coming in so that I could do some better strategic planning around like my expenses too.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's good to know. I would either track just when the money hits your account, or I would track when I invoice and when the money hits my account. I don't think it's useful to you necessarily to just know when you're invoicing.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks. That's like the kind of thing you can take like accounting classes. Like I've taken so many accounting classes, but then when it comes to like when the rubber meets the road, like how do we actually parse this out? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Same. Yeah, there's not it's kind of hard to like get help with this sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm figuring this out day by day, all by myself.
Yeah. So thank you. It was really cool to walk through it with you.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Well, any other questions today?
That's all. Thank you.
Awesome. It was nice to see you. Hope you have a good
You
day.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. See you soon.
Ciao.